Hi, I'm Peter Fetterolf. I'm the CTO with ACG Research, and this is a video doing talking about our 5G BAE tool. And today with this video, I'm going to go a little bit more detail into the settings. So this is how we configure the data in the tool. So the very first thing I have to click up here on the right, and I have to click on settings here to get to the settings value. On the left-hand side are all the visualization and the output data. So here with the settings, on this general tab, basically I have a number of options. So I can set either greenfield or brownfield scenario. In a greenfield scenario, it assumes I'm building a whole network from scratch relative to what the particular demand is. In a brownfield, I assume that whatever the demand is in day one, that network already exists, and I'm only building onto the network as demand requires, as demand grows. On fiber, I can either lease the fiber or build the fiber, so that'll give me a choice there in terms of how I compute those expenses. And then on the cost side, I've got a cost for power, which I can change if I need to. Cost for average floor space, and this is per RU per month. So this is my data center essentially per rack unit. And then I've got an FTE expense. This would be a fully loaded FTE expense as opposed to just a pay scale. And then finally down here, I've got numbers of data centers. So I have three levels of data center: regional, aggregation, and local. And I can put in the numbers of data centers that I have there. Now, the next tab is our demand tab. The demand tab is basically the key thing that's generating the traffic or the demand. So the first thing is how many smartphones do I have? Now, these are pre-populated with our templates. So we have templates for different regions, and that's kind of where these numbers come from. So I have essentially densities in urban, suburban, and rural areas, and starting in 2020, growing to 2024. How is that growing? Now, these could be typically the way we do it is this might be for a region, say like North America, or it could be a region like New England, or it could be a country in Europe, Spain or France or Italy, or even a provincial level. However, there's also penetration rates of those users. So a service provider might not have full penetration of all those users because there are obviously competition, et cetera. So I can select penetration rates for each of these regions, and I might change them in the starting point, and I can change them when I get to the ending point as well. And so this model starts in 2020, ends in 2024. Down here, this is where I set the service share. So this is where, I can say, okay, now for my urban, suburban, and rural regions, what's the service share between 4G and 5G? And starting, what's the service share between 4G and 5G ending? That determines how much of the time a user is using 4G service versus a 5G service. And then another critical part of demand is traffic data. This is in gigabytes per month. One thing I should note also is our model, we use the gigabytes per month, but then we calculate gigabit per second based on peak traffic demand in specific areas. So we use some models to calculate peak demand versus gigabytes per month. So I can put in my gigabytes per month again for my urban, suburban, and rural for both 4G and 5G, and then specify growth rates. So that's my demand data. Now the next piece of input is my cell sites. So how many cell sites do I have in this particular region, this area? Again, these are all pre-populated with our templates. So we have cell sites again in urban, suburban, rural areas, and again, penetration of those cell sites. So for example, I might have, X number of cell sites in Europe or North America. However, if I'm a service provider, I only have 10% or 50% or 30% or whatever those cell sites. So it allows me to use my template, my ACG default data, but then customize that relative to my own particular operation. The next piece here is our X haul, so it could be front haul, back haul, mid haul, etc. And what's my distribution here between fiber, microwave, and lease line? I specify that for the starting point of the model, 2020, and for the ending point of the model. And I'll do the same thing for urban, suburban, and rural areas, because clearly there's a very difference in X haul relative to whether I'm in urban, suburban, or rural. Finally, I've got my expense chart. Now in the freemium version of the model, this is grayed out, so this is for paid subscribers, but here I have a whole lot of information relative to my expenses, and I can select either monthly, yearly, or non-recurring. I can select CapEx or OpEx. I can have the cost and have a CAGR. So I have a lot of detailed expenses around X-Haul, a lot of detailed expenses around cell sites, my 4G packet core, my 5G packet core, my IMS, my servers, and my routers. So I have a whole lot of expense types there that can be enabled with a paid subscription. And then when I'm finished with all this stuff, I can either save the model into the scenario that I've created, or I can do a save as a new scenario. So that's, I'm Peter Fetterolf. Thanks for listening.